seated, and I would like also to invite Ambassador Willem van de Voorde to the podium. He is our special envoy for climate and environment from Belgium.
Die werkt. Yes, okay. So, thank you, Lucie, for the introduction. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to welcome you to this afternoon of study and exchange. So, despite the nice weather and the beautiful circumstances here, it is, we have to do some serious work, but the theme is really very interesting. Today's session will focus on a key question. How can the regional seas conventions and action plans support the effective implementation of the BBNJ agreement? The BBNJ agreement, of course, as you know, is about to enter into force. It is a historic step for ocean governments and the protection of biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction. And this milestone opens a new chapter, but it is only the beginning. Regional cooperation is essential to translate global commitments into concrete action. And Belgium has been at the forefront of this process, demonstrating leadership and commitment to ambitious and effective agreement and implementation. Our engagement reflects not only our dedication to ocean protection, but also our readiness to contribute to the institutional architecture that will make this agreement work. As we prepare for the first COP, success will depend on collaboration, evidently, between global and regional actors, across sectors, and among all stakeholders. Regional seas conventions and action plans have a critical role to play in ensuring coherence and leveraging existing experience. Regional seas conventions with a mandate in areas beyond national jurisdiction have valuable experience to bring in protecting marine biodiversity, establishing protected areas, and sharing knowledge. However, there are important challenges. For instance, how do we ensure coherence between regional and global efforts? How can we make the best use of existing mechanisms and networks? And how do we address gaps in capacity and knowledge, especially in vast and remote ocean areas in the high seas? This event provides a platform to share experiences and insights and to reflect on the coming implementation and the role of the regional seas conventions and action plans and work together on solutions to these challenges. And we invite all participants to actively contribute to the discussion after the presentations, which will be moderated and later by Lucie. So finally, it's my great pleasure to welcome Susan Gardner, the director of UNEP's Ecosystems Division. So Ms. Gardner has 3 decades of experience in international environmental policy. At UNEP, she leads global programs advancing nature-based solutions for sustainable development, including food systems transformation, climate resilience, biodiversity protection, and disaster risk reduction. She has helped steer the international process towards a global treaty to end plastic pollution, of which we will talk also this week. So, Ms. Gardner, dear Susan, please, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ambassador. Excellencies, it's so great to see so many friends and colleagues here. And, you know, despite the long introduction, you know, for many of us, I think the BBNJ agreement may be a pinnacle of so many careers. It's truly a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation, for sure, treaty that has the power to truly change our future. I mean, change the future of the ocean, certainly the people whose lives depend on it. But like anything, of course, that promise is only going to be realized if implementation is strong. And that needs to be rooted in experience. It needs a solid foundation to build on. And like the ambassador stated, it needs to also have that coherence between the global and the regional solutions. And that's where the regional seas conventions and action plans come in. They've got 50 years of experience showing countries how to turn commitments into real protection of the sea. And it is this particular experience that aligns so well with what the BBNJ agreement requires of us now. Regional Seas has shown how to turn the Rio Convention's global targets into really practical regional strategies and how to better harmonize their indicators. With their protocols, they've helped countries to actually establish and monitor marine protected areas, carrying out environmental assessments, strengthening governance, and building capacity, whether that's through training or through sharing technology. This is the kind of support that countries will draw on as they take on the new responsibilities for the high seas. And I can try to make this even more concrete. We've got regional seas protocols that already have identified marine protection areas that are of regional importance. And so just extending that protection into areas beyond national jurisdiction just makes a lot of good sense, right? Makes practical sense, it makes scientific sense, as well as ecological sense. So this provides us a useful scaffolding that countries can use as they consider the new high seas MEAs under BBNJ. It's that experience of regional seas supporting countries to bring global MEA commitments into regional policy and into legal frameworks, and assisting countries with BBNJ ratification and implementation. This is experience that can be extended to support countries as they start to align their national legislation with BBNJ and strengthen their capacity to implement the treaty. And of course, there's a clear link, obviously, to 30 by 30, because so many regional seas frameworks already exist. And it's right now above the global average in terms of marine protected areas, which is something to celebrate and use as a model. The specially protected areas and biodiversity protocols offer concrete tools that can help countries to link BBNJ work to the wider 30 by 30 effort. And of course, as the ambassador said, there's true value in coherence. Countries often face similar pressures within a region, and regional seas have shown how, across several conventions, we can make connections, aligning approaches that reduce duplication, strengthening ocean governance, helping countries to implement effectively and efficiently. So in summary, this is just a bit, you're going to hear a lot more, but this is just a bit of what the regional seas can offer for BBNJ implementation. Essentially, it's a well-oiled machine and a proven toolkit. Because in final, the choice, that's going to be up to the countries. And there is so much at stake, because protecting our ocean is truly essential for strengthening the resilience of communities whose lives and futures depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those very interesting openings. The rest of the event will focus on, as has been said, we're trying to really start a conversation to have a platform to discuss these things. But before we can do that, I think it's also important to understand where we are right now. And to do that, we will have two keynote speakers. The first one being Atina Shanaki from Doalos. I've been asked to say the whole name of Doalos, so I will very proudly read the Division of Ocean Affairs and Law of the Sea of the Office of Legal Affairs of the United Nations. So Doalos for the friends. She is the legal officer there, and she's as such also a member of the BBNJ core team of the division. So she also supports, of course, the work of Doalos as interim secretariat of BBNJ, and she will give an outline of where we stand today with BBNJ before we can have this conversation. Thank you.
I apologize for this. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by expressing my sincere thanks to the organizers of this side event for inviting the Division for Ocean Affairs and the Law of the Sea of the Office of Legal Affairs of the United Nations, also known as DUALOS, which currently serves as the interim secretariat of the BBNJ agreement. So in this presentation, I will provide a brief overview of the agreement with a focus on the provisions that address the relationship between the agreement and relevant legal instruments and frameworks and relevant global, regional, sub-regional, and sectoral bodies, also referred to as IFBs. In this context, I will briefly touch on the role of regional seas and action plans in the implementation of the agreement, and I will conclude by updating you on latest developments regarding the BBNJ agreement. The BBNJ agreement is the third implementing agreement to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and as such, it must be interpreted and applied in the context of and in a manner consistent with UNCLOS, and this is set out in the agreement itself. The agreement was adopted on 19 June 2023. On 19 September 2025, the conditions for its entry into force were met, thereby enabling the agreement to enter into force on 17 January 2026. As of today, 144 states and the European Union have signed the agreement, and 75 signatories have also ratified, approved, or accepted the agreement. It is noted that the time period for signing the agreement has closed as of 20 September 2025. After that date, the agreement is open for accession for any state or regional economic integration organization that wishes to become a party and has not yet signed it. The slide shows a distribution of signatures and ratifications by regional groups of the United Nations. The agreement applies to marine biodiversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction, and this refers to the high seas and the international seabed area, or the area with capital A. As such, the use of high seas treaty to refer to the agreement is misleading, as this term ignores one of the two areas of application of the agreement. By surface area, nearly two-thirds of the ocean are areas beyond national jurisdiction. Under the overall objective of ensuring the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction for the present and in the long term, the agreement addresses a package of four main issues. The agreement sets out specific measures in respect of these key issues. It sets out specific modalities to establish, implement, and monitor these measures, and sets out institutional arrangements to oversee the implementation of the agreement and these measures. Specifically, the agreement in its substantive parts contains provisions regarding activities with respect to marine genetic resources of areas beyond national jurisdiction and digital sequence information on such resources, and provides for obligations to share both non-monetary and monetary benefits arising from these activities. It provides for the establishment and implementation of area-based management tools, including marine protected areas in areas beyond national jurisdiction, which includes processes for publicity, consultation, monitoring, and review. It further elaborates on the obligation under UNCLOS to conduct environmental impact assessments, including by establishing thresholds and a process for conducting such assessments. Finally, it provides for obligations to cooperate in capacity building and the transfer of marine technology, which must be based on and responsive to the needs and priorities of developing states parties. The agreement also addresses several cross-cutting issues, including the establishment of a Conference of the Parties as the governing body under the agreement, as well as several subsidiary bodies to review and assist in its implementation, and a clearinghouse mechanism and a secretariat. Among its general provisions, the agreement provides for a suite of 14 general principles and approaches, including the precautionary principle or approach, an ecosystem approach, and an integrated approach to ocean management. In its general provisions, the agreement expressly addresses its relationship with relevant instruments, frameworks, and bodies. The agreement is to be interpreted and applied in a manner that does not undermine relevant IFBs and in a manner that promotes coherence and coordination with those IFBs. In addition, parties are required to cooperate, including through strengthening and enhancing cooperation with and among relevant IFBs, and to endeavour to promote the objectives of the agreement in decision-making under those IFBs. Several provisions are included in the agreement to give effect to these general requirements of non-undermining and promoting cooperation with relevant IFBs. I will highlight 4 main ways this actually happens. First, by establishing opportunities for relevant IFBs to engage in the consultation processes established under the agreement. IFBs can participate in the consultation processes for area-based management tools, including marine protected areas, and in environmental impact assessments. Parties must also take into account, where appropriate, input from regional and sub-regional bodies when reporting on capacity building and the transfer of marine technology. Second, through cooperation with the institutions established under the agreement. The Conference of the Parties must promote transparency and allow IFBs to attend meetings as observers. The subsidiary bodies established under the agreement must also draw on appropriate advice and information from relevant IFBs. Third, through specific arrangements or mechanisms for cooperation. The Conference of the Parties must promote, including by establishing appropriate procedures, cooperation and coordination with and among relevant IFBs, with a view to promoting coherence among efforts towards the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. The Secretariat also facilitates coordination with the Secretariats of other relevant international bodies. Finally, the agreement provides further modalities and opportunities for cooperation and engagement of relevant IFBs. And in this regard, I will note that capacity building and the transfer of marine technology under the agreement must build upon as appropriate and not duplicate existing programs and be guided by the lessons learned, including those from capacity building and the transfer of marine technology activities under relevant IFBs. Regional seas conventions can play a vital role in the implementation of the BBNJ agreement. Firstly, they facilitate regional cooperation by bringing states together to coordinate conservation and sustainable use measures. They act as a bridge between global objectives and regional action, ensuring coherence and delivering tangible results. Secondly, they bring the regional expertise and experience to support measures such as area-based management tools and environmental impact assessments. Regional seas conventions with competence in areas beyond national jurisdiction have already established marine protected areas and environmental impact assessment procedures. They can also assist with monitoring and compliance by leveraging existing data and reporting networks. Thirdly, they provide platforms for capacity building and the transfer of marine technology, complementing relevant activities under the agreement. In doing so, they help avoid duplication and maximize results. I will conclude by briefly updating you on latest developments. The preparatory commission established by the General Assembly to prepare for the entry into force of the BBNJ agreement and the convening of the first meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Agreement held its second session from 18 to 29 August this year. At that meeting, the Commission continued its consideration of issues taken up at the first session, also considered additional issues, including arrangements to enhance cooperation with relevant IFBs, and confirmed the dates of the third session, which will take place from 23 March to 2 April 2026. Moving forward, Doualos is working closely with the co-chairs of the Commission to prepare a number of documents for the third session. These include revised versions of some of the documents prepared for the second session and additional documents requested by delegations during the second session, including a draft decision of the Conference of the Parties, providing guidance on cooperation with relevant IFBs to assist text-based negotiations during the third session. In preparing the draft decision, the co-chairs have taken into account the views expressed and written input provided by delegations during the second session, as well as additional written input provided by delegations within the indicated timeline. They have also drawn upon information provided by relevant IFBs and other stakeholders. With this, I conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Atina. I think this was a very useful presentation to start the discussion later on, so thank you again. I will now ask our second keynote speaker to come to the podium, Alberto Pacheco Capella, who is the chief of the Regional Seas branch of UNEP. And in this role, he oversees 18 regional seas conventions and action plans, if I have counted well. He has over 18 years of experience within UNEP and has held senior roles in climate, biodiversity, and multilateral environmental governance. He will give a presentation on the regional seas conventions and action plans.
Good afternoon, colleagues, and well, it generates quite a lot of interest, this side event on BBNJ. So let me start with thanking the government of Belgium for giving us the opportunity to gather together to discuss about the BBNJ agreement and also about the Regional Seas conventions and action plans. Also, I would like to thank the Regional Seas who have been very involved in the organization of this event. Colleagues, so we have a short presentation about the Regional Seas. To give you an outline of what the Regional Seas are, they are regional MEAs. They are MEAs which are the biggest regional framework in the world for cooperation on the protection of the marine and coastal environment. The Regional Seas was established in 1974. 2 years after the inauguration or the foundation of UNEP, and it began with the creation of the Mediterranean Action Plan in 1974. We have, as a consequence of the Mediterranean Action Plan, which is trying to address really one of the big elements and problems that we had in the Mediterranean, which was actually pollution. And through a lot of scientific work, countries around the Mediterranean basin came together to designate what is now called the Barcelona Convention, the first regional seas convention around the world 50 years ago. Nowadays, colleagues, 50 years later, we have an entire framework of the regional seas that composes 18 regional seas conventions and action plans around the world, and we cover over 146 countries. 7 of these conventions are actually administered by UNEP. We have other conventions which are independent secretariats, but the common line of all of the Regional Seas Conventions and Action Plan is that they provide the trusted frameworks grounded on science, and they are legally binding frameworks through which countries can come together to address the major topics degrading their marine and coastal environment. These are legal instruments, colleagues, and these are legal instruments that help bring the global commitments into the regional action and prioritization. They advance the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. They help to deliver the 30 by 30 targets. They are essential in the preparation of the BBNJ implementation. And they strengthen the action on chemicals, waste, and pollutions. So the regional seas ensure the coherence between the national priorities that the member states are calling for, the regional obligations tied up with the global commitments. Sorry, we're supposed to have a presentation, by the way, so while we get that presentation going, because there will be quite a lot of maps in the presentation. I think very importantly, colleagues, is that the regional seas, they anchor their decisions on science. A lot of the regional seas have built in that science to policy interface. And we see it around the different regional seas where we have regional platforms focused on science and how they communicate with the regional seas so that the decisions and the policies are made in the regional seas, but they're actually substantiated by the regional scientific platforms. So they work on harmonized indicators, they do assessments, they do monitoring systems, and basically the regional seas help the countries to understand the ecosystem trends, and they take informed decisions on the basis of those trends. Very importantly, the regional seas also mobilize funds, and we have regional seas that are very proactive in the mobilization of funds through the various multilateral donors, but also through the Global Environmental Facility, the Green Climate Fund, and also the Adaptation Fund. These projects help to implement and support the implementation of the convention and also of all of the protocols. I think here we do need to have the slides. Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, colleagues. So this is a map of the regional seas. Here you see the 18 conventions and action plans around the world. And like I mentioned, established in 1974, 18 regional seas conventions covering 146 countries. Now, let me present to you the typical structure of a regional seas convention. It follows exactly the typical structure of the MEAs, because at the end of the day, they're regional MEAs. So they have a long-standing intergovernmental architecture with a conference of party guiding the policy, the bureau that provides the oversight, and a secretariat that coordinates the implementation with the national focal points and the scientific and compliance committees. These structures ensures that the political decisions taken by the member states, based on the scientific advice by a series of network of experts and the national inputs, they flow coherently through a system that enables the country to adopt protocols, to set the priorities, and to take collective action on marine and coastal issues. The protocols in pink are the traditional setup of the protocols that the regional seas have. Most of the regional seas, they actually have protocols on specially protected areas and biodiversity, land-based sources of pollution, oil spill and emergency response, dumping, offshore activities and hazardous waste, and integrated coastal soil management. Not all of them have 5 protocols. Some of them actually have 7 protocols. Others have less protocols. They might have 2 or 3 protocols. But these are traditionally the protocols that the regional seas conventions and action plans have. For this session, I wanted to focus on the specially protected areas and protocols, specially protected areas and biodiversity protocol, because I think that this side event has very important conversations, as we heard from the previous presenter. This is a protocol that addresses area-based management tools, and is the protocol that actually houses the marine protected areas of regional importance within each one of the regional seas. I wanted to provide you a snapshot of where we are in terms of global marine protected areas. You will notice that all of these protected areas, both in national waters and in area beyond national jurisdiction, currently we're 9.6% of marine protected areas in the entire ocean. So we are very far away from the 30 by 30 goal of protecting 30% of marine and coastal areas by 2030. What is noticeable about this map is that national waters, if you look at it, it only represents about 39% of the global ocean. And this is really where the majority of the protection is taking place. 22.5% is actually taking place within the EEZs. The remaining, the 61%, is basically the high seas. And at the moment, we only have 1.45% of protection in the high seas. So we do see that there's a major governance and conservation gap in terms of the ocean. I wanted to provide this map because this map is the map of the ecological and biological significant areas under the Convention on Biological Diversity, the CBD. These are scientifically identified zones of high ecological value. These are places that are essential for biodiversity, for productivity, for ecosystem resilience, both within national waters and the high seas. And they have a shared scientific foundation that guides the conservation of planning, including marine protected areas and any future BBNJ measures. And then I'm going to provide you with 3 examples of where the high seas intersect with the regional seas. So the first example, and you're going to hear from the panel, the first example is from OSPAR, the Oslo and Paris Convention, which the areas on the left of the screen, the areas highlighted in blue and green are basically marine protected areas already in the high seas, which are inside the convention area of OSPAR. The second one is in the Mediterranean. These are what the Mediterranean or the Barcelona Convention calls the specially protected areas of Mediterranean importance. And there's still very small pockets of high seas in the Mediterranean Sea. So these are examples of where there's an intersection between the high seas and the regional seas. And then the third example that I wanted to provide from you is from the colleagues in the Pacific, from the UNEP Convention. This is the convention mandate, and these are the EEZs of the Pacific countries, the 13 countries that have ratified the UNEP Convention. I think what's really striking about this image is you're going to see the pockets of where there's high seas, and you're going to see that they're all surrounded by the EEZs. So here, there's a story to be told here, and this is something that could be considered in the panel. So colleagues, I want to provide a perspective that currently there are 5 regional seas that do have the mandate on areas beyond national jurisdiction, and these are the 5 conventions. They have the geographic mandate, and they have already delivered, as I mentioned in the previous slides, delivered tangible actions such as high sea marine protected areas, regional biodiversity measures, and coordinated deep sea conservation efforts. There remains a need, for sure, and that is part of the conversation that we hope to stimulate in this panel, for a stronger regional mandate, improve scientific cooperation with different partners, and in alignment with the BBNJ agreement. And now we get to where we are at the moment. Some regional seas, apart from those 5 regional seas, we are seeing the countries giving mandates to the regional seas conventions and action plans. And I just highlighted 3 of them. Number 1 from the Avian Convention, which is the Western, Central, and Southern Africa region. At the COP in May of this year, Decision 14.5 talks about the ratification and implementation of the BBNJ agreement and calling on the Secretariat to support their contracting parties towards the ratification and then future thinking into the implementation of the BBNJ agreement. Barcelona Convention, which concluded on Friday, is 24th COP. The previous COP has the Portoroz Declaration calling on countries to accede and ratify the convention as soon as possible as an opportunity. And we heard that in the COP24 last week in Cairo as well. And the Nairobi Convention has been working on areas beyond national jurisdictions for the last 10 years. And they have been focusing on the ecological connectivity between national waters and the high seas. In their Conference of the Parties last year, they had a very specific decision on ratification, accession, and implementation of global and regional ocean-related agreements, including the BBNJ. And most importantly, I would argue that last week, we actually saw the countries, the contracting parties of the Nairobi Convention, take a step forward. And that step forward was basically through the amendment of the protocol on marine and coastal biodiversity and protected areas. This protocol, with the amendment, it shifts from species conservation towards an ecosystem-based approach. It has stronger focus on area-based management tools, including protected areas expansion and management. It has a very strong focus on the network of transboundary and ecological connectedness of the marine protected areas. It has the linkages with the different agreements, including the BBNJ. So there's a lot of language on BBNJ on this amended protocol. So, colleagues, as you see, this is a very important new development within the regional seas, which we hope can stimulate further conversations about how the regional seas can become vehicles to support the implementation of the BBNJ agreement. Let me just conclude with this final slide. 2/3 of the ocean lies in the high seas. So therefore, the 30 by 30 goal will not be able to be achieved if we continue to focus only on the national territorial waters or on the national waters, the 200 nautical miles. But reaching the 30 by 30 target will require leadership that extends beyond the national waters, recognizing that the health of the high seas is essential to the global ocean ambition. As countries strengthen their protection of the EEZs, complementary action on areas beyond national jurisdiction will enforce food security, climate resistance, and long-term economic stability across the regions. And the BBNJ agreement, colleagues, provides the legal tool for the international community to organize this collective effort and a scale of protection where we most urgently need it. And then finally, it is in this perspective that we believe that the regional seas offer the trusted platforms to link the national measures with the emergent high seas governance, ensuring coherence, partnerships, and science-based ecological connectivity and conservation networks across the boundaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I apologize again for the technical issue. But this was a very useful presentation. I think we now have a better, clear view of BBNJ, of the Regional Seas Conventions and Action Plans, and I think we are ready now for our panel, actually. We have a very impressive panel, even if I say so myself. And I will invite them now onto the stage. The first one being Susana Salvador, who is the Executive Secretary of OSPAR. She is working in this role, of course, supporting the OSPAR contracting parties in delivering a clean, healthy, and biologically diverse Northeast Atlantic Ocean. You can come because it's very long. Thank you. She also works with bond agreement countries to prevent pollution from maritime activities. She has extensive experience in international marine governance, fisheries, and conversation also probably, but conservation. Thank you, Susana. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. I'm also inviting our second panelist, Ambassador Elvira Velasquez. She is the Executive Secretary of the Southeast Pacific Action Plan and General Secretary of the CPPS. Thank you, Elvira. She is a career diplomat who has held senior roles in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Peru and has also served abroad. Welcome. I will also like to call Tatiana Hema, who is the coordinator of the Mediterranean Action Plan. Before joining UNEP in 2003, she held senior positions in the government of Albania, within the National Environmental Agency of Albania, and also with the Ministry of Environment. And then I would also like to invite Jared Posire, who is the head of the Nairobi Convention. Jared has over 20 years of experience in the environmental sustainability across sectors including wildlife, freshwater, energy, climate change, etc. He has worked with government, NGOs, intergovernmental organizations, and previously he was serving as Assistant Director at Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute. Welcome. And then last but not least, I will invite Yope Davitanivalu, who is the Director of the Environmental Monitoring Governance Program at the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, also known as SPREP. With over 20 years of experience in environmental governance, Yope has worked extensively on policy development, environmental impact assessments, and strategic planning across the Pacific. He has also served as Fiji's Director of Environment and held senior roles in public health and environmental management. So I would like you to welcome our panel. Thank you. Hello. Yes, thank you very much. So I might start close to home, if that's fine. I might start with Susanna. Susanna, Belgium is a contracting party of OSPAR, and recently we've been talking about MEAs in areas beyond national jurisdiction, which is something that OSPAR has a leading role on. And so since 2010, I think OSPAR has extended and created the first network of marine protected areas in areas beyond national jurisdiction. And I was wondering, given OSPAR's experience in this, what opportunities and challenges have emerged in designating, but also managing, which is also a challenge, MEAs in areas beyond national jurisdiction, and how can they contribute to an effective implementation of the BBNJ agreements?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Dear participants, it's an honor to participate here and be able to present the work of the OSPAR Commission, which has been established through the convention. And yes, there has been an MEA network established a while ago, and this is also due to the necessity that the contracting parties, which are composed of 15 governments of the Northeast Atlantic and the European Union, understood that there was a need to have areas that needed protection due to the different species and habitats, so to many features in need of protection, but they considered that these marine protected areas had to be based on science and of course on evidence-based. And so there has been an effort in terms of finding, there has been a process in terms of finding the areas and finding the way to make those areas ecologically coherent and also in relation or responding to the needs of the different features at stake based on the list of threatened or declining species that OSPA has also conceived. So yes, the geographical scope of OSPA Commission is huge. It goes from the Arctic waters to the Macaronesia Islands of Azores, Madeira and Canary Islands, and this is also due to a recent decision on the extension of the geographical scope of the OSPA Commission, of the OSPA Maritime Area, and being also responsible to declare, to designate and to manage marine protected areas in areas beyond national jurisdiction. There are a few, there are 612 marine protected areas in the maritime area, of which 12 have been collectively decided by the contracting parties, and of which 8 are in areas, 12 are in areas beyond national jurisdiction. So they have been collectively designated. Of course, there are challenges, but these also provide the opportunity, field of work, and the challenges, of course, may have to do with the jurisdiction of the contracting parties, whether or not they lie within their areas, and so it depends if they are fully protected, so their protection goals may focus on the seabed, the subsoil, the water column, or just on the water column, or just seabed and the subsoil, depending on where the jurisdiction lies in. So these challenges also make the need to have a productive dialogue with all states that may be concerned by the designation of those areas. And also there is an opportunity, because not all the activities that occur in the OSPA maritime area can be managed by OSPA Commission, because of course some of them, and just example of fisheries and maritime transport, are outside the scope or the mandate of the Commission, and so there has to be a dialogue so that we understand what are the sectoral implications and in which way these existing activities or activities that might be occurring in the future can be addressed, and how possible measures can address the existing problems that these activities may pose to the state of the marine environment and to the species that they're included. So this is why these two challenges have, and starting with the fisheries, have led the OSPA to go in search of finding platforms for discussion. And this have this example that I would like to share with you, which is with NEAFC, which is our sister organization, the Northeast Atlantic Fisheries Commission, which also adopts vulnerable or designates vulnerable marine ecosystems and fish enclosures. And so we have been since a while ago in touch and coordinating our efforts, and a collective arrangement has been signed in 2014 so that these two bodies, OSPA and NEAFC, have a dialogue on potential areas in need of protection, but also having the opportunity to invite any concerned organization to join these efforts, and also to share their understanding, their knowledge about what measures exist in this area and what potential measures could be addressed or tailored has to tackled and to minimize the effects, the negative effects of the human activities occurring there. So I think that these are challenges make or pave the way for the rising of opportunities that, of course, required imagination, but also a strong willingness from contracting parties to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you touched upon some very interesting points. Amongst other things, I think the cooperation with, for example, the regional fisheries management organizations, on which we'll come back later, because this is a very important point. Athena also said already that this is the cornerstone. Cooperation is the building block for the BBNJ agreement, so we'll come back to that later, but thank you very much for this first answer. I will maybe next ask something to Elvira. The BBNJ implementation, on which we're working now very, very hard. It's of course depending on data-driven decision making and monitoring will also be very important. Yes, I think you, yes. And monitoring will also be very important. And so within CPPS, are there any mechanisms to study or monitor the Southeast Pacific, maybe even cross-jurisdictional, that could actually contribute to the implementation of BBNJ?
Well, thank you very much. Really for this commission, the South Pacific Commission is really honored to co-host this event. For me, it's a privilege to participate in this panel, which emphasizes the role of the regional SEAs as a valuable platform to support the implementation of the BBNJ agreement. The Permanent Southeast Pacific Commission has been associated to the regional SEAs program since 1981, and this alliance has contributed to the strength on legal, technical, and governance capabilities to address, since an early stage, the marine environment challenge. The implementation of the BBNJ agreement is a new challenge to address together. Now let me go to your question, that I will relate with the connectivity. The connectivity can be, has two dimensions. No? One is the dimension, the structural dimension, related to the physical characteristics of the ocean. And the other dimension is the functional one, that is related to the movement of the organisms which generate an exchange of genes, biomass, or energy between the habitats that they transit. This connectivity, the functional connectivity, and the study of this connectivity determines the biodiversity patterns and the demographic, the ecological, and the evolutionary interdependency of populations and communities along their life cycle, as well as the flow of energy and organic matter among sites. The CPPS study both dimensions, study the oceanographic dimension and study as well the functional dimension. Our studies related to the structural dimension are connected with the regional program to study El Niño phenomenon that probably most of you are aware. This is an ancient and recurring climate pattern in which the surface waters of the Central and Eastern Pacific become unusually warm and cause changes in weather patterns around the world. El Niño exemplifies one of the most significant interannual variability in the planet's climate. And this oceanic atmospherical phenomenon has global implication. Yet, it produces local effects that can be catastrophic, though not in all cases. So in the region, we have established since the 1970s a commission that is in charge to follow up these changes that made a monitor of all the oceanographic condition of the ocean and is able to give an early alert of this phenomenon in order to advise the governments to take the measures for prevention. So the addressing of this phenomenon also has created a very good connection between all the scientific institutions in the region. It produced a climate bulletin monthly. They meet annually to get a common study of the indicators that they have collected through cruises that we develop annually, no? In each of the governments, Peru, Chile, Ecuador, and Colombia. We organize this research in the marine research, and then we exchange the information, and we have meetings to establish if we are going to have Niño, what the probabilities are. And this is so important because all the effects that El Niño has in our coastal area, in our population, in our economy, in our fisheries. So all this information also is in repositories that we have in the CPPS, and as well that we share with the International Oceanography Commission through the GOOSE project. All this information will be, we think, very valuable to share with BBNJ mechanisms later on, because they will contribute also to understand better what is the condition and what are the pressures that the biodiversity, not only in our area that has a very high variability, but also in the extended area where this produce these effects. The other dimension of the connectivity, the functional one, is the one that we follow through the action plan that belongs actually to the regional seas studies. And also we have the convention that's what were mentioned before, that are our framework, where make us to work together in order to do these studies. Those studies are related to strategies that we have regarding mammals, turtles, sharks, and those efforts now are updated. These strategies are being updated, and our cooperation with a project that is called Save the Blue 5 that we developed with the German cooperation, the GEC, as well with Marviva, as well with the Conservation International and the government of Costa Rica, allowed us to extend our observation to Costa Rica. So we also have Panama with CPPS and Costa Rica with this project, to see how is the behavior of these migratory species in order to try to establish national policies that will contribute and that will preserve, that will be beneficial for their conservation. Another aspect that is related to the connectivity is as well, of course, our network of protect areas, marine protect areas. We have 120 more or less marine protect areas. That is a good number, but we need to improve the management. And that's why we are updating that this network that is also very special because it's not only in the marine areas, it has also oceanic areas, like the ones that are around Galapagos or the ones that are around Rapa Nui, for example. So we are introducing in this updating strategy new elements as more social, ecological approach, of course ecosystemic approach, but the inclusion also of the people who is involved or that is connected with the areas to also rescue traditional knowledge and include women and include, of course, young people in what we will expect will be the future of this network. So with these elements that are also in the functional dimension and in the structural dimension of the connectivity, we think that we will be able to contribute to the implementation and the good science that should be taken into consideration when measures about the implementation of the BBNJ will be taken. this is also so important because we should recognize that all the efforts that the coastal states have done in order to understand the ocean, and that knowledge now should be improved, but also should contribute to the knowledge of what we don't know at all. We know very little. So the cooperation then should be a good opportunity there to improve the knowledge and the governance that are so indispensable in order to have healthy oceans for a sustainable development. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Elvira. I think you raised also some very important points. We know very little of the high seas, but then I think the regional seas conventions and action plans actually know their region also very well. And there's a lot of programs and monitoring to be recognized also in the respective areas. So thank you for highlighting that. I'll just go ladies first and continue with Tatiana. Tatiana, I'm wondering if there's, in the Mediterranean Action Plan, if there's any existing mechanism to help support and facilitate the implementation within the Mediterranean region. But then, and I have hidden two questions into one, maybe also how you see the involvement of for example, the Mediterranean Action Plan within the BBNJ process, because we heard also from Martina that of course the IFBs are very important. I think the Regional Seas Convention and Action Plans are really relevant IFBs. How you see this involvement?
Lucy. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here and to provide some of our internal reflection and work that has been taken in order to make sure that the Mediterranean is in the front line to support the ratification and the implementation of the BBNJ. Since 2023, we have 3 political declarations that the contracting parties have made, one in Portoroz at COP23, the other one was in June in Nice, on the 50th anniversary of the Barcelona Convention, and the very last one was 2 days ago when we finalized COP24 in Egypt, and all of them, they made it very clear the commitment of our region to contribute to ratification and implementation of the BBNJ. So from a political perspective, there is a very strong commitment. Now, Barcelona Convention, as many of you said, the system is operating for 50 years. There are plenty of tools that have been developed, implemented in order to push forward the implementation of the conventional protocols, and we have undertaken an internal reflection on what we can give to the implementation of BBNJ, and from the other side, what also we are going to benefit in order to push our agenda at the regional level in the Mediterranean through the implementation of BBNJ globally. And I must say that it was very interesting, and I'll give you some examples that there are already very good mechanisms in place that really can be used both ways. There is a very strong policy framework and programmatic framework in terms of expanding and implementing MPA target 30 by 30. The Barcelona Convention, and this is the basis. There are already working groups in the region on MPA and OSCM. There is a governance mechanism established in our region, MAP, IUCN MED, the fishery organization in the region, MEDPAN, which is a network of MPA in the region, ACOBAMS as well, another regional organization, and we are working together to see what would be the major action that we need to undertake to support the BBNJ implementation. So we are not starting from scratch, but there is already a very good element on it. Let me also give you an example. I attended mid-November the COP of the Pelagos Sanctuary, which is MPA agreed between Monaco, Italy and France. I was very much impressed. I was very much impressed of the management plan, of the number of stakeholders participating. It's a very big MPA. It was our first MPA of Mediterranean importance that was adopted by our contracting parties into one, but they were created by far much earlier. I believe that there is a lot of work, and I'm sure that OSPAR is the same and other agencies have the same, that we could bring on the table to support BBNJ implementation. The two other elements that are quite important is the monitoring and assessment. Alberto did mention it, that we're trying now to harmonize to the extent possible at global level, but there is a provision in the BBNJ on clearinghouse mechanism, and the work that we are doing at the regional level to know what the sea is about, and in particular in the deep sea, which is a little bit less unknown compared to the coastal area that we are used to work, it will be very important to give the necessary knowledge for marine spatial planning, which is quite new in many of the regional seas, but I believe that we are better placed than anybody else in order to support with this very important dimension. Now, environmental impact assessment in transboundary context, I'm sure that any of us around the regional seas in the Mediterranean, our contracting parties are giving quite a lot of importance, is politically delicate. However, we are very much determined to see if we can prepare now some common guidelines that would allow collaboration and, of course, avoiding any political sensitivities in view of making sure that there is full collaboration within and among the contracting parties. And finally, there are provisions in BBNJ on the compliance mechanism. I would be very curious to see how this will work. Under the Barcelona Convention, we do have a very interesting compliance mechanism and a compliance committee created, and I believe that by having this compliance committee in BBNJ and in a regional city like ours, it will bring more attention to the implementation of the provision related to MPA and about diversity conservation. So we are not starting from scratch. There is a lot of the basis, the standard is high from where to start, and this is not new. I'm not saying it just to give credit to all the regional seas around the world, but there is a lot of acknowledgement because countries are participating in many processes. Some of contracting parties to the Barcelona Convention joined the EU after the others, and the work done in the MAP system helped them a lot, that within the mandate of MAP they were placed very well in making sure that they comply with the requirement to become EU member states. The same has happened with the Stockholm Convention. With Basel Convention, I'm very confident that the same will happen also with the BBNJ. I believe that regional seas will be a very strong ally in supporting contracting parties to comply with the requirement BBNJ, and I also do believe that the BBNJ ratification, entry into force, and the work under BBNJ will give a strong momentum support to the implementation of the Barcelona Convention. So thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, congratulations on a successful COP that was just concluded, so that's really recent. I think you mentioned very good points. We're not starting from scratch. I think this is also something that's coming back throughout the event, and that's important to keep in mind. You also touched on two other points that I would like to connect to maybe my next question for Jared also. You mentioned the contracting parties. So I think that's a very important element to keep in mind, because the regional seas conventions and action plans are not only IFBs, so pulled into the BBNJ process through that, but of course you also have contracting parties that will be parties to BBNJ. So I think it's a very interesting element, and so for Jared also, within the Nairobi Convention, are there any mechanism to support or prepare maybe the parties for the implementation of the agreement? And then Tatiana also mentioned this kind of two-way street. That's also very important, I think. And so how you see that also? Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, good evening. Nairobi Convention is 40 years old this year, so life begins at 40, that is what they say. So we are beginning life now with a promising future going forward. And in respect to mechanisms already in place within the convention area, there are 10 contracting parties, with Kenya as one of them, where actually UNEP and the convention are hosted. As Alberto mentioned during his overall regional seas presentation, discussions on area-based areas beyond national jurisdiction within the convention area have been held for the last about 10 years. So the governments have been seized of the interest to look at areas beyond EEZs for obvious reasons, because we have conducted scientific assessments in the region to confirm that there is very high connectivity between internal waters and areas beyond national jurisdiction. In terms of biodiversity, physical processes, chemical processes as well, and therefore the need to link the management of coastal and marine resources within areas within national jurisdiction and areas beyond national jurisdiction. And this ABNJ-related discussions for the last 10 years led the contracting parties in the 11th COP last year to adopt a very robust COP decision on BBNJ following the adoption of the BBNJ agreement. The BBNJ decision is very robust because it refers to a number of actions that should be taken at regional level to prepare for support countries in ratification, but also prepare for implementation. I will just mention some of those key activities. One is the need to strengthen regional collaboration. And I want to appreciate the political goodwill that is there among the contracting parties, because the partnership between the countries is very strong. I'll give you an example. Mauritius and Seychelles, for instance, are managing a joint management area that is beyond the EEZ as an example of what potentially regional collaboration can look like. They have identified an area of mutual interest that is beyond the EEZ, and they have formed a commission under which this area is being managed. And we discussed as late as 2 weeks ago how such an experience can be replicated across the region. The other aspect that the COP decision deals with is the need for collaboration in terms of capacity sharing, development, scientific and technological across the region. Yeah, because while one country may lack capacity in a particular area, but that capacity may be available in another country. So working within the mechanism of the convention to support capacity mobility, especially capacity in deep sea research, and we have quite some level of that capacity within some countries in the region. Now, some of the additional interesting aspects of this COP decision, the parties asked that in the region we develop a regional vision and implementation framework for BBNJ. Whenever we have BBNJ discussions, I say that ratification will be the much easier part, but implementation will be the most difficult part because it will be like a field with landmines because of the spatial scope of the legal instrument. So what the contracting parties would like to see is that we are ahead of the curve by developing an implementation framework to give clarity in terms of what implementation will look like at national level. The work to develop this implementation framework is already underway, and we will be reporting in the next COP in terms of the progress that has been made. The contracting parties have also established a legal and a technical working group on the BBNJ for the region. These are legal and technical experts who have been nominated by the governments. So when they meet at regional level, they come with government mandate. They speak on behalf of the countries. And this is the working group that will support the development of the implementation framework on BBNJ to ensure that the voices of the countries inform the development of this implementation framework. Lastly, as Alberto mentioned, for the last 3 years, the contracting parties have been negotiating amendment to the protocol on marine and coastal biological diversity and protected areas in the region. The last 3 years, since 2022. 2 weeks ago, the parties met for a whole week with very long sessions into the night. And I'm happy to indicate that the parties were so determined and they finalized the amended negotiations for the amended convention of this protocol. And this is significant. It makes a very strong reference to BBNJ. It strongly promotes establishment of area-based management tools, including protected areas in areas beyond national jurisdiction. It has a very strong focus in terms of alignment to other important and relevant multilateral environmental agreements. For instance, the Convention on Migratory Species, CPD, CITES, among others. We have just circulated the final text to the contracting parties, and we are working now to prepare for a conference of plenipotentiaries for the adoption of this protocol, whose negotiations were completed two weeks ago. So these are some of the mechanisms that are available in the region and under development to support the parties towards ratification, but especially towards implementation of the agreement when it comes into force. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really interesting to hear that everyone has the same name, Regional Seas Convention and Action Plans, but we do actually work in very different ways, so that's very interesting to hear. And then last but not least, first of all, I apologize, I know we're running a bit late, also for the people working here, but we have one very interesting question left, of course, for Jope. So the BBNJ recognizes the special circumstances of SIDS, which is actually also a really important element in there. And I'm wondering how SPREP can leverage its regional governance frameworks and programs to strengthen Pacific Islands states' capacity for implementing the BNJ agreement, but then also addressing unique challenges which are very unique to the region, such as vast ocean areas, connectivity, traditional knowledge. You can take mine.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucy. Hello. Sorry, it's 4 a.m. in up here in Samoa now. So while our families are ready to get fresh and wake up, and while we are still here, and my apology if I'm going to pronounce some words with difficulties. Yesterday, the SPREP team joined our other regional seas and parties to do our last project steering committee meeting for the ACP MEA 3. And it's been a very, very successful project. And it is through this project that strengthened one of the 18 regional seas that was mentioned by Alberto, that is called the NOMEA Convention. But to you, my dear panel members, besides you are some water bottles and some coffee mugs and some nice pens, compliments of the Pacific Hub as a part of each promotion to the successful implementation of the ACP MEA project. If I may start, SPREP as a regional organization of the Pacific works with 26 member countries, and it has this EEZ area that covers 98% and only 2% land. And I must thank Alberto for showing that within the EEZ of the Pacific Ocean, there are high seas pockets. Pacific Island countries are really cautious about and trying to put in mechanism on how it's going to manage the BBNJ work. And for information, my dear colleagues, the first country that ratified the BBNJ is a Pacific Island country, that is Palau. And so far, if I'm correct, there are more than 10 Pacific Island countries that has ratified this BBNJ agreement. That is just to show. It's thinking the importance of this instrument towards the better management of its oceans. Because from the Pacific Island perspective, they look at ocean as their main source of livelihood, and they value it as part of their culture, and also to maintain the traditional knowledge concept or space so that they can pass it to their future generation. But what is PrEP doing? That is the question that I need to share with us this afternoon. Well, the mandate of SPREP in the Pacific region, that is to promote regional cooperation, promote assistance, protect and improve Pacific environment, and also to ensure sustainable development. And while looking at this mandate, which was established 30 years ago, and with this BBNJ agreement being discussed and agreed now, and looking at the elements of the BBNJ, it is linked and aligned to the mandate of SPREP, which was discussed by our leaders 30 years ago. So through that governance thinking of the leaders of the Pacific, through SPREP as being a mandated organization to look into environmental sustainability, it has established this NOMEA Convention as the secretariat by SPREP. That is one form. I think the mics are not liking me this afternoon. Yes, so it is one platform that the Pacific region is looking at to strengthen BBNJ capacity building through the raising capacity building in the 4 elements. And one strategy tool that the SPREP is established within the Pacific Island countries is the establishment of roundtables. While there are 5 thematic areas that this is frustrating. There are 5 thematic areas that SPREP is mandated to support Pacific Island countries with: climate science, climate change, biodiversity, waste and pollution, and environment governance. So with this, I'll try and shout. Okay, hold it a bit higher. So those are some of the mechanisms that has been established to support progressing the work of BBNJ within the region. And I like the intervention made by my colleague beside me on the area of capacity building. Yes, through the existence of crop agencies, through the office of the Pacific Ocean Commission and SPC and USP, we are collectively working together to raise capacity in the area of for countries to understand what they are committing to. I like what has been raised earlier on: environment impact assessment, marine special planning, marine genetic resources, laws and policies. So these are the areas that your Pacific Island countries need capacity building on in order to allow better management and implementation of the requirement of the BBNJ agreement. I'll stop there, Madam Moderator. Sorry for the off and on of this technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't worry about it. Thank you for the response. I think it's very interesting to hear also the way of working with roundtables, etc. It's something very useful, I think, maybe even inspiring. We had a general question for all of you lined up, but given that we're a bit short on time and really wanted to prioritize the fact that we wanted to have a discussion, I don't know about you, but I think we have a fantastic panel. I don't know how often you get together and we get the chance to ask all of you questions. So maybe we can just jump ahead and ask the oh. Hello, yes. This so maybe if there's any questions to kickstart the conversation. I see we have someone in the front, someone's coming running to you. I can give you, it's a very beautiful micro. It's shiny.
Thanks a lot. It's shiny and it works, so that's perfect. My name is Bruno Pozzi. I'm the Deputy to the Secretary General of the International Seabed Authority, which we've spoken a lot. I've heard a lot of dates and anniversaries. I know the Regional Seas program is more than 50 years old, Nairobi Convention 40, ISA is 30 years old. But ISA is it an older brother, an older sister? And we don't know, but it is definitely linked to BBNJ. It comes from UNCLOS, and Athena has shown one of the slides that shows chapter 11, that's us. And so BBNJ is a kin, is in the family. I say that because not only are we on the family, but we share the same geographical coverage. So while we are also dealing with areas beyond national jurisdiction, 54% of the ocean, basically, and it's extremely important. And we share the same goal, which is a sustainable use. And I think we need to emphasize this, because this is how the two objectives come together, BBNJ and the future of what the International Seabed Authority, the community, the 170 members, parties to the convention, will deliver. We want to deliver the promise of the common heritage of humankind. That's what the seabed is. It's a common heritage. And we want to have to be able to share the benefits of the sustainable use of that area. Sustainable use means very high standards, extremely high standard of environmental protection. And there are lessons that we can learn jointly from the regional seed experience. And as much as we've heard how regional seas collectively want to embrace, I would be very happy to do the same exercise about how the regional seas could embrace the seabed in an articulation that brings everything together. The way we act with what Dualos has also defined, coordinated, cooperative way of delivering a one ocean policy. So thanks for the panel, for the information.
Sorry, I'm not sure. Yes, I think you want to answer, or you don't want to answer? Was it a question? Because yeah, it's an. I think we're very lucky to also have Dualos in the room, because yeah, it will be very important also with ISA. We are seeing it especially also this week, collaboration. So I think it's very on topic. Are there any other questions from the room? Otherwise, I might just proceed with the questions we had planned. I think it actually follows up nicely from Bruno. It was mostly focused on this regional cooperation that will become global cooperation, and so what approaches to regional cooperation and knowledge sharing, which has also been mentioned here in the answers, could help ensure coherence between regional and global efforts and enhance capacity to implement the BBNJ agreement in areas beyond national jurisdiction. So I don't know who wants to take the floor first. I'll just pass the shiny mic.
Thank you. If I may start. Yesterday, I shared about the closing or the last project steering committee meeting of the ACP MEA 3. And one thing we noticed that due to the success of this project, the question has been asked on how can we leverage financial resources to sustain the gains that was delivered by the ACP MEA 3. I do believe that is a similar approach that I would like to recommend. Like from looking from the Pacific Islands point of view, now we struggle, the challenge that we faced in implementing the various existing MEAs that the countries have ratified. Now with INC on the table for discussions and BBNJ negotiation will start soon. So leveraging financial resources to support holistic engagement to allow better voices to be heard in the BBNJ platform of discussion is important. And that is something that we would like to raise from SWEP to support the NOMEA Convention in its implementation. I have a list here, but I leave it to my colleagues to add on.
Now, our time, I think, is very well spent already, so I will be very brief, maybe 2 minutes only, to build on the discussions that we have already had. I think, evidence-based decision-making will be critical in the implementation of the agreement. And within the Nairobi Convention area, a formal structure referred to as the Science to Policy Platform has been established the last about 5 years, which provides science that informs policy decision-making. And that is a great opportunity, and this will inform the science that will be required when it comes to implementation of the agreement. I think secondly, it's about strategic partnerships. There are a number of partnerships that have been established. I will mention just only one for now. Under the Nairobi Convention, a formal structure that brings together civil society organizations has been established. It's called the Western Indian Ocean Consortium. And this includes civil society organizations like WWF, WCS, the Nature Conservancy, among others. And the civil society group as a platform under the convention, they have identified priority areas on which they are working. And I will mention only one area. One of the areas they have identified is BBNJ, and IUCN is the one that is currently leading the BBNJ thematic area as a platform under the convention, and we have been conducting capacity building workshops together. Lastly, a Western Indian Ocean and Marine Protected Areas Network has been established that brings together managers from mandated entities managing MPAs across the countries. That will be critical when it comes to establishment and expansion of ABMTs, area-based management tools in regard to the BBNJ. Thank you. I stop there.
Yeah, if I may, some words about the cooperation. We already, all of us in a way, brought quite very good evidence on how we can contribute based on our mandate and all the work that's been undertaken for many, many years. But more than, and there is an important added value region by region in contributing, but I believe that the most important value is that we are 18. And altogether, geographically speaking, we represent the ocean. So this is one of the most important, powerful that the regional seas can offer to the implementation of the BBNJ. Having said that, it means that it's important, okay, things can improve on the go. But it's important that from the very beginning, when the implementation mechanism of the BBNJ will be undertaken by the first COP, it is a very clear articulation of the contribution of the regional seas to the implementation of the BBNJ and the other way around, because as we said, the agenda or the issues that are addressed under the Regional Seas Convention, in particular in the high seas, are not that easy. They also bring sensitivities, and the fact that the world agreed on a global convention on BBNJ, this means that this will make also our work at the regional level easier. So this is very important to be articulated from the very beginning. So we are very confident in that, and this is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Well, I just will refer to the approach, which approach facing a new paradigm, and the BBNJ is that. It's a new way how we connected with the ocean and how we make our governance more efficient, and has integrated, has this factor, this element of integration, this concept of integration very clear, because the ocean is a unity, so we should face it like that. And also cooperation is very clear, as well as collaboration. But now, to have a coherence, it is necessary to continue the political dialogue, because the principles, the mechanisms need to be still more refined during the process of the COP. And I think there also the regional organizations and the sea programs have a word to say. So regarding how we apply the concept of the scientific research, for example, or how we apply the patrimony of humankind. So the elements are there. And in the negotiations of how the mechanisms, will be refined, this dialogue will continue, and the dialogue at regional and a global level. So the multilateralism is very important approach too. And as the regional, as we say, because we need also capacity building. We need to understand this very complex mechanism that is the BBNJ. No? And we also need to adequate our governance. So we know that it's fragmented, that is sectorial, so we now need to go to another model, probably the cross-sectoral approach, in order to make more efficient the interventions that our governments will have when they implement the convention. So there is a lot of homework to do. The regional seas made their best contribution, but we are facing new times and new challenges.
Thank you so much. I would like to also to say on behalf of OSPA that there is a strong political commitment, which is the strategy that has been launched in 2021, and it unfolds with regard to the vision of having a clean, healthy and productive seas, as well as sustainably used and resilient to the ocean acidification and the climate changes. And also this strong commitment unfolds into operational objectives and also tasks that need to be fulfilled. So we have the political aspect and practical implementation through an implementation plan, and this is also revised, and we are very lucky to count with over 400 experts from all the contracting parties. So this is a bottom-up approach, providing the data necessary to have sufficient monitoring elements and also to collect the results of the assessments made at the regional scale that will serve as a basis to readapt this strategy. And that was the cases. We had the strategy readapted. If you want also to see the results of the quality status report launched in 2023 by OSPA, you can find a brochure over there with the main key findings. And so having said that, these regular assessments also provide support to a review of what is to implement, and it has been the case. So we have seen that 70% of the tasks are probably be attained by 2030, but there are some others that still need leads and capacity networks to move on. So we know where the gaps are. We need to adapt, of course, but at least the network of capacity exists, as well as a strong political commitment. So I think that these are two aspects that I wanted to say, but also one of the most important is the trust building. If we are talking about marine protected areas, we need to have, since the beginning of any proposal for a marine protected area, to involve all the stakeholders, all the sectors and the regions, because there needs to be not just cross-sectoral, but also inter-regional, to learn with the lessons that have been applied elsewhere. So we need to learn from this experience so to better adapt and reshape our action as regional sea conventions that are relevant for the implementation of the BBNJ agreement. So that is my view as OSPA. I don't know if you want me to proceed with some remarks.
Thank you for I think, ending on a very positive note, because we didn't talk about trust, but I think that's a key element that we need to build next to in parallel to the BBNJ process. So thank you for the last element, and then I will give you maybe the floor for a very brief conclusion of the event and the panel. I would just, before you do that, ask for a very big applause for a fantastic panel. Thank you.
So yes, thank you very much for your input, and I would like just to make some closing remarks with regard to the very productive discussions we had here. So we have models, we have methodologies, we have networks made of people that have the capacity to implement these good actions, these goals and regional goals, so to have and to contribute to have a marine ecosystem that resists to pollution, hopefully contributing to a decrease of pollution inputs, and also to halt the biodiversity loss that we are assisting nowadays. But we heard a lot, and I've taken some notes on how the role of these existing regional mechanisms can play a role as trusted frameworks, as Mr. Capella initially started to say. Also, they are legal instruments providing the frameworks that are ready-made solutions to tackle all these problems, and also including in the high seas. They have decades of experience in regional cooperation for biodiversity protection, and also they are capable of addressing the current and the emerging issues and uses of the sea. So they has proven regional models for early consultations with countries and with organizations. As we said, sectoral collaboration is utmost, and it is essential also to have an effective management and compliance of the actions agreed for the marine protected areas. So there is also an ability to aggregate government's positions and priorities, offering regional coordination platforms that feed into these area-based management tools, including, we talked about the marine protected areas, but there are also other effective conservation measures, and also feeding into EBSA processes, and also supporting the marine special planning. So in conclusion, these regional sea convention programs and regional solutions are politically committed, so there are decisions made at a very high level, political level, as the protocol that we heard, and also the good examples in place, and they are uniquely positioned to connect regional processes with global processes within the BBNJ, and to strengthen coherence across governance levels. So they can provide strong science policy interfaces, monitoring and assessment systems, and also compliance mechanisms that can enrich global knowledge of the marine environment. As established platforms for dialogue, fostering trust and collective action, as I just mentioned, since the beginning of any consideration of proposal to protect areas in the high seas, and also through their constant monitoring exercises and regular assessments as marine health checks provide mature regional solutions built over years of collaboration and inclusive engagement. So in conclusion, I think that their capacity building, coordination abilities are key to supporting BBNJ implementation, and they are also, they will probably have certainly have a key role in operationalizing the BBNJ agreement by participating in relevant working groups as relevant stakeholders and in consultation processes while engaging with the agreement subsidiary bodies. So knowing also that many of the contracting parties of the Regional Sea Convention are parties to the BBNJ agreement, this is also a very particular advantage in terms of providing the political momentum to have the BBNJ in force and having an effective influence in turning around the current situation with not that healthy seas, not that sustainably used seas, and not that biodiverse oceans. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sorry, those were the final words. But thank you all for coming and for staying, most of all.